are bright and shiny in my mind. You got me loving, hating, crazy indecision in my mind.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast, where the focus is on deer hunting, tips, tricks, tactics, and stories from across the Midwest. And now, here is your host, Aaron Blasey.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and this is episode number 56. And today on the podcast, Justin and I have Layden Force from North American Whitetail. Man, I know you and I have been trying to get him on here, and you're really close friends with him, and I'm glad we finally got him on.
Yeah, me too. It's been a struggle to get all of our times to line up. He's a very busy guy. He's our age. I think he's barely 32 or 33 years old, and he's the publisher of 3 magazines under Outdoor Sportsman Group. So he's the publisher for North American Whitetail Magazine, Wildfowl Magazine, and Gundog Magazine. And this fall, he just accepted the role of the producer of North American Whitetail TV. So he has got a lot on his plate, but he's just an awesome guy, and he's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he's a publisher, so I mean, like you and I spoke about yesterday, he just speaks like he knows exactly what he wants to say, and he says it with so much knowledge and just so much sincerity that I mean, it just comes out. Like there's no denying how much he knows and how passionate he is for what he does. And I was fortunate enough to film his very first hunt when he got hired by OSG. And again, Outdoor Sportsman Group, they have a bunch of publications and productions underneath them, like I just mentioned a few, but Guns and Ammo, In Fisherman, those are all under the same roof as far as where they come from. But North American Whitetail, Wildfowl, and Gundog, those are all his responsibilities. But when he first got hired, he was actually hired to be on the side of Bowhunter Magazine. He worked pretty directly with Kurt Wells at the time, and I was fortunate enough to film his very first hunt when he got that job at Bowhunter, which was a spot and stalk black bear hunt in British Columbia, an archery hunt at that. So, he was a little nervous. He was excited to be on the hunt. Kurt Wells was there. It was cool, a cool dynamic, because it was like father and son watching Kurt and Layden, together, and like how things happened. And, Kurt always gave him, the first opportunity or the first option, or, asked him, do you want to go after that one? Or I'm just going to sit back. It was just really something special to see. And, like I said, fortunate to be the one to document that is an understatement, in my book, because that's, you got Kurt Wells and then you got Layden, who nobody knows who Layden was at the time, but to see him being taught, or, not taught, but you know what I'm saying, like just influenced and guided by Kurt Wells, and it was
right. Mentored.
Yeah, mentored. There you go. That's what I was looking for. But anyway, since then, he's migrated over to North American Whitetail and has had a lot of opportunities open up for him. And like I said, he just took on the producer role for North American Whitetail TV in the fall of 2018. So, he's putting all those third and fourth quarter shows together right now, and it's just been a tough schedule to get through, but we finally got him here, and we're going to dive into some of the public land adventures he's had, and kind of just his take on public land hunting and where it's been, where it is now, where it's going, and he actually just helped spearhead a new project called North American Elk, which is a publication geared towards the whitetail hunter who's looking to go after their first elk, or just maybe try to help, define some of the boundaries that people think exist between deer hunters and big game hunters. So it was a great conversation. I mean,
and just to let everybody know, we kind of switched roles on this one, Justin and I. He kind of spearheaded this one as the host, because I don't know if you can tell, but I'm sick. I've kind of got a hoarse voice a little bit, and I was coughing and sniffling and sneezing and stuff. So Justin took the reins on this one, and I've been under the weather for the last 2 days, and I'm ready to get out of this and do some turkey hunting. So turkey hunting's coming up fast, and that's all I can think about right now. But yeah, let's get into this interview that we recorded with Layden, and we'll let him take it from there. And also, don't forget, we're still running the America's Best Bowstrings code right now. So if you guys do want some custom strings, premium platinums, in any string that they make, go to their website or call them and get your strings ordered at checkout. Type in Fall Podcast to get $10 off. Any orders $99 and over. Recently, I've just got my new bow press, and I've been working on a lot of bows right now, getting my wife's bow ready, my bow ready, and then a couple bows for work, and they all have ABB strings on them. I'm looking at 8 bows right now that I'm getting ready, and my dad just bought one. And honestly, the premium to the platinum strings, there are some differences, but I'm telling you, they are both high-end strings, and I've shot them both and did a lot of testing with them. And I think, Justin, you can vouch for them too, because you've been shooting for the last couple of years, and they are second to none. And I know that they're partners of this podcast, but I can honestly tell you, they are legit strings, and I really want you guys to go check them out. Even just drop them a line on social or something, and just say, hey, want to learn more about your strings, or I want to order some strings. They're really top notch.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw, but one of our past guests, Joel Burham, actually has a Whitetail Fit Signature Series bowstring that they're mass producing as well. So it's just kind of a cool little circle of life here, that's going on.
Yeah,
but and
they're really cool looking strings. They're like an orange and kind of like a gunmetal silver kind of looking twist to it. I'm an orange guy. I like the orange color strings, so those are really cool. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, with the commercial done there, let's get to this with this interview with Layden.
Layden, how you doing, man? It's been a while since I've got to catch up with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm doing well, and just appreciate you guys having me on here. I think actually, Justin, the last time we got to catch up was the Iowa Deer Classic.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, for some reason, my brain was going back to Salt Lake City, but I forgot you were here for the Deer Classic.
Well, yeah. And I had forgotten the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo as well, which we got to spend some time together. It's crazy that we both live in Iowa and Missouri, and the first time we got to catch up in months was in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah, it is crazy, but just goes to show how busy we all are. But anyway, it's good to have you on the podcast here. Aaron's with us. He's just a little under the weather. He's trying to save his voice.
I am here.
He's
We're changing it up this week a little bit.
Yeah, he's going on Michigan Has Talent next week. He's got to save his voice a little bit.
I got to save those vocal cords because I'm not a very good singer anyway.
Yeah.
I hear that lemon juice and chicken noodle soup helps with that. So
I might have to try that because I think rice got me into this situation. I think it's a little bit of food poisoning wrapped with a little bit of influenza maybe. I don't know. It's attacking me on all ends.
Not good.
No.
So, like we mentioned in the opener here, Layden is a public land, I guess, guru, if you could say that. Would you say guru, Layden, or just a...
I would say I'm a public land adventurist.
Adventurist. Okay,
yeah.
that's better. But just a quick backstory on Layden. Layden was, when I first met Layden, it was on a bear hunt in British Columbia. In my freelance days, I was contracted, and it was his very first hunt for Bowhunter Magazine when you were working over there. And,
yep.
I've said it a bunch of times on the podcast before, and it never gets old being the cameraman because of the documentation you're doing. It's, it could be the last hunt for somebody. It could be the first hunt for somebody. And in that case, again, it was your first hunt for Bowhunter Magazine when you got hired there, but you're with North American Whitetail now. And still bringing that public land aspect to the team there. And we talked before we got recording here, and I just feel like, growing up watching the shows and coming up through the industry, that that public land pursuit was something that lacked in a lot of mainstream shows on network television. And I think it's understandable now, look back to say that with the cost involved, it's just there's a better return on the investment from the time and the money standpoint in producing the show to go to an outfitter. But it seems like things have evolved, to the point where, not just from a conservation standpoint, but from the viewership standpoint and the demand, and relatability for people to see what's possible to do without an outfitter,
For sure. Yeah, for sure, man. It's, yeah, I think that, there are a lot of people over the recent past just within the industry that, like you said, have kind of beat down the persona of if you're gonna take a big deer, if you're gonna have a good time, or if you're gonna be a successful hunter, you have to go with an outfitter. And not to say that there's really anything wrong about that perception, because chances are that from a statistical point of view, your odds are probably a little bit better with an outfitter. And if you were to run the numbers, but I just think that organically, a lot of us growing up, whether you're in the northeastern United States or the midwestern United States or, the western part of the country, land ownership isn't around every corner anymore. It's not like it was, 34 years ago when everybody in the Midwest had a 20-acre farm or a 30-acre farm or a 40-acre farm that they lived on, and that's how they made a living. And, it's just kind of the change in times. And as hunting has become probably a little bit more popular over the last 10 or 15 years, it seems like the ability to access private ground has become a little bit harder. And I think that for a long time, the industry just kind of, the natural thought process was that private ground is where it happens. And, for a lot of us, fortunately, over the last probably 5 to 10 years, probably really the last 5 years or less, there have been a lot of folks like, Randy Newberg or Jason Matzinger or, the Whitetail Adrenaline guys. I mean, there have been a lot of folks that are on the personality side or the entertainment side, the content generation side of the business that have kind of opened the thought process of everybody back to public land hunting. And, I think you called it, Justin, when you said it's easy for folks to relate to that style of hunting, because at some point in your life, growing up hunting, unless you're a pretty fortunate individual, you probably had to go out and struggle through a public land hunt, or, maybe that's all that was offered to you, and you didn't have the opportunity to walk out on a nice big chunk of private ground and hunt. And so, it's the reality, I guess you could say, of hunting. And not that there's not authenticity to hunting on private ground, because there's a lot of that, but for a lot of folks out there in the industry. But at the same time, I think it's a relatable style of hunting, and most of us have journeyed down that path at some point, and sometimes out of necessity, because that's the only opportunity that we have.
I guess I kind of fall under the coin of being the fortunate one as I was growing up. I was always hunting private land. My family owned 215 acres that I cut my teeth on. And, back in the day, I'm 31 now, gonna turn 32 next week. But, back then when I was growing up and knew any better, the public land, I didn't really know a lot of people that hunted public land, and there wasn't a lot in my county here in Michigan, hardly any at all. But in the surrounding counties, there's a little bit, but it was more of, public land wasn't even a thought, because I think, like you said, Layden, it's, I was, on the side of the coin that's, more fortunate to have the private land. Now I'm a little older, and like you said, and you mentioned Whitetail Adrenaline, I'm actually down in my man cave watching the first DVD of Whitetail Adrenaline. I got it going on behind me, but, in the last 10 years, when they came out, that was my first kind of encounter with public land, saying, man, these guys are really doing something here. I think there's something here. But it was always one of those things that, like, I don't know, it's public land is very intimidating to me, when it's like, man, it's almost like trying to make a jump that you don't really know how it's going to come out. It's like, man, I'm comfortable with this private land, and trying to get out of your comfort level or comfort zone, it's intimidating. What would you say to guys like me? I mean, kind of intimidated in a way, just to jump in, head first and go for it.
Yeah, for sure, man. And what I'd say, Aaron, is, for me personally, I actually grew up much like you. grew up in northeastern Missouri for the most part, and was very fortunate that, my great grandfather and grandpa had started a farm in the late 60s, actually, that ended up turning into, my grandfather taking over and ended up turning into an 800-acre farm where they raised livestock and had some row crop and raised families. And so I grew up with that outside my back door right on the family farm, and arguably probably experienced some of the greatest turkey hunting that anybody had the opportunity to experience in Missouri, or maybe even in the Midwest at times. And, decent deer weren't a hard thing to come by any means. And I, like you, just kind of always had it out my back door. And, all my friends I went to high school with, we live in a little small town. They all lived on the farm, and hunting private ground was just kind of the normal thing. And until I got into high school, I kind of, had the same fear. Like, if we knew somebody growing up that was hunting public ground, man, the perception just always was, well, why would you when you've got private ground?
Right.
Public ground can be tough. That's a hurdle.
Exactly.
I don't know why I want to put myself through that. Yeah. And then as I got to college, I went off to college and wasn't too far from home, but was on the football team there at school I was going to, and I didn't get a whole lot of time to hunt. And when I did, I didn't have the opportunity to drive back home. Not to say that I didn't do that from time to time, middle of the night and early in the morning, making the trips back and forth just to make sure I got an opportunity to sit and stand at home. But it became a situation where, man, the only opportunity I had was to cruise 5 miles outside of the town that I went to school in, and there was a little piece of public ground around a couple lakes, and I just came to the realization that if I was going to get to hunt and get any time at all to do it in my free time, I was going to have to do it on public ground. And so kind of, I spoke about necessity earlier, just said that out of necessity, that's where I had to go. And so I traversed that, I guess you could say, hurdle, or that first adventure, and really just kind of took the leap of faith just out of necessity. And what I found out just in those first public land hunting experiences is that perception, which usually is, man, there isn't any good public land hunting.
Right.
Was not necessarily correct.
Yep.
Now, it wasn't easy. It wasn't necessarily easy. There was one access point around that lake, and the lake was fairly large, and there was, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 1,500 acres around those lakes. But that property, it was pretty much the property that was adjacent to the lake, and I think the deepest, at its deepest point, that public property was probably 600 yards wide between the lake and the fence. And
okay.
So to get to the complete south side of the farm, you were walking a mile or maybe 3/4 of a mile and spooking deer and turkeys out the whole time you were doing it, of course, which was part of the process as well. But as I began to go through that hunting process, man, it turned into an adventure for me.
Uh-huh.
And though at times it was pretty tough, it was enjoyable, because it really kind of forced me to learn how to hunt a little bit better.
Yep.
I would be a little bit more strategic in my approach. Think about what's going on. Think about how I'm going to walk the perimeter of that fence, the far edge with the wind coming across my face when the wind was right, and just to get halfway around the lake, which was a chore at times. But I guess getting back to your original question was, what do you say to those folks? And I'd say, hey, man, just take it as a fun day or a fun opportunity. Treat it as an opportunity to go out and just try it once.
Yeah.
Take that first piece of public ground. Know that you're going to encounter some hurdles or some problems, and go out with a lighthearted attitude and just enjoy the journey. And I think most people will probably get frustrated. Hands down, at some point you're going to get frustrated about it, but you're going to realize that, man, it's enjoyable, and there is real opportunity there as well. So just kind of, I guess, keep an open mind and take the glass half full approach and go out and just make the jump and do it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened to me so far in what you just said is take it as an adventure. I've been out a couple times. I picked a piece of public around here, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out and scout it, see what happens. Well, I guess you could say perception of you don't know what's there. What is going to be around the next bend? What is going to be over the next knoll or the next, hill? And when I went out there, I found a lot of sign that was very light bulb and hit me in the face. Unlike, a lot of, when you're hunting private, I've hunted the same piece of private my whole life, so it's like, oh, I know the deer use this draw, I know they use this, this funnel, whatever it is, they go around the lake this way, so it's like, you kind of get in that, like I said, comfort zone. Well, when I was out in this piece of public, I'm starting to think of A to Z instead of A to E. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, I'm thinking, like, how do I get in here now? And, on what wind do I find if I find a buck bed, or if I find bedding in general, how do I get in here? What tree do I need to get in? And then it's like, man, I am way the heck back here. How the heck am I going to get back here first? It's going to be like an all-day excursion, so that was kind of cool for me to just think outside the box and see property that I hadn't seen before. And I think that was what has kind of got me going, I want to get out there and start doing it a little more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me anyway, it became addictive. And I think what I really kind of uncovered within my own kind of mental foundation, or mental, I guess you'd say, makeup, is that there's a nomadic part of my soul. And man, with public ground, now I look at that, wow, hard to believe, but my freshman year in college, when I stepped on that first piece of public ground, was 16 years ago, I guess, which doesn't even seem possible. But now looking back across that, man, that's led me to hunting on public ground in, Nebraska, Montana, the Dakotas, Kansas. I mean, go down the list, just all kinds of neat different places, and always kind of driving the motivation to find that next piece of public ground to go and just check it out and walk it. And I have a feeling that for probably the first 5 or 6 years beyond, maybe even just a couple years beyond that, of public land hunting, I don't think that I was really hunting that much. I think that really, I called myself a public land adventurist at that point in time, or just a little bit earlier in the podcast. And I think for that first 5 or 6 years, man, I didn't realize it, but that's pretty much what I was doing. I was going out and just adventuring.
Yeah.
And I thought I was hunting, but I just wanted to walk over the next ridge, or around the next cove of the lake, or, whatever it might be, over the next break. And man, it's just so neat. It really is. And man, there's so many opportunities for us out there. Not only in the Midwest, but in the Northeast, or maybe even in the Southeast, and places, a lot of places I haven't traveled yet, but places I hope to someday, that people just don't realize, areas that generally say, oh man, there's no public ground in this state or this area of the country. And if there is, it's completely overran with hunters. And there's still a lot of opportunity out there for everybody.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
you know what I just saw that I never realized was public land? Just about the entire South Island of New Zealand.
Yes, there
Yeah,
is.
it is.
It's crazy,
I've
man.
been there.
I never knew that.
Yep.
I never knew that. Aaron's been there.
Yep.
But I was like, oh my gosh, okay, next year I'm going. Let's do it.
Yep. And you don't need tags over there.
No, and it's
stag, man. That's that's the
And
bucket
for what
list
you're
item
gonna-
for me, for sure. Yeah.
yeah. And for what you're gonna save, knowing the public land is there, you don't got to pay an outfitter. That's worth a $1,500 flight. If that's if that's the biggest cost, or $1,000 or whatever. I mean, it's freaking New Zealand. That's $1,000. Sign me up.
Yeah. Since I was a boy, that's a place that's on my list of places to travel, and most importantly to hunt and fish. I think great trout fishing. So many different species, so many different landscapes. They even have a pretty healthy herd of whitetail there.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that there's only one mammal native to all of New Zealand? Everything on the North and the South Island were all introduced except for one animal. Do you know what it was?
No, what was that?
It's a bat. It's a species of a bat.
The bat. Justin, it doesn't surprise me that you know that fact.
It doesn't surprise me
For some
actually
reason,
either.
man, it doesn't surprise me.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, let me rephrase that. The only native mammal is a bat. All the other mammals that are there, the stag, the tar, the whitetails, everything. Those were all introduced.
I guess I didn't know there was whitetail there.
There is, yeah. I just heard the story here. I guess about 3-4 weeks ago from, our editor-in-chief at North American Whitetail Magazine, Gordon Whittington, and Dr. James Kroll, which is a contributor to the magazine. A lot of people know him as Dr. Deer, but the two of them got started on that. I brought up the fact that New Zealand was a bucket list item for me, and I said, man, I'd really like to go there and chase a whitetail if possible. And so they started to break it out, and I think, if I remember correctly, there were 18 whitetail deer that were first transported in, and that it has now grown to a full-fledged herd, and pretty neat. I was talking to Doc about it, and I asked him about the potential of interbreeding, and he said, no, he said, actually, and I'm probably going to mess this up just a little bit. I didn't take a whole lot of biology growing up, but we're in college for that matter. But he basically laid it out as the dynamics of the genetics of whitetail deer are pretty diverse, and said that they're actually able to breed without kind of that interruption, I guess you would call it, that a lot of other species see. So it's pretty interesting to see that it's grown to the size that it is, or to hear that it's grown to the size that it is now, that herd there in New Zealand. Yeah,
it is. They don't get affected by that inbreeding near as much as a lot of other animals. I mean, in my high fence days, we would selectively breed like a half brother to a half sister. Like, you just breed, big to big. And they don't come out with 3 eyeballs or nothing, or 6 legs. It really blew my mind. I'm like, oh, well, why would you do that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. It was my first question to Doc. I said, no, man, I just figured that, the inbreeding would be in effect. He said, no, actually, they're very hardy animals, or a very hardy species. And he said that just the dynamics of the breeds it allows for so much of that. So definitely not influenced in the way some others are. Kind of took us off on a tangent there.
Yeah, sorry about that. So back to how long you've been doing the public land hunting. I know you said college, but kind of since you've come on the scene with OSG through Bowhunter and now NAW, where have you been? What have you hunted in the past? And, what are your future plans as far as public land hunts going into this season?
For sure, man. I guess where have I been in the past or since I started hunting public ground? I'd say that really, my 4 years through school, and then probably, I guess, the first 8 years. I coming right out of college, I was lucky enough that I got hired by the folks at Remington Arms and the Freedom Group Company. And so I was a pretty busy guy. I think you guys know enough people in the industry that you talk to, one of the unfortunate things about working in our industry is that you're pretty busy when everybody else is out partaking in our favorite time of the year, which is the hunting season, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we had sales trainings in September, inevitably. I just never understood that, but that was backed right up to sales planning meetings with folks like Bass Pro and Cabela's, and go down the list, Shields, and then you had new product introductions that would happen in October and November, and more planning meetings, and really I was limited to my hunting time away from the house, unless I snuck something in while I was out on the road. And so I was pretty limited geographically too, and pretty much stuck to Nebraska and Missouri for some reason, and then the other state would, be Iowa. I live here in Northeast Missouri and have been fortunate enough to live here for most of my career post-college. And if I got a chance to run off and hunt somewhere on public ground, it was either Iowa or Nebraska. Don't know why I never drove 45 miles to the east into Illinois. I'm not really sure. I just discovered this year, but since coming to OSG now just about 2.5 years ago under the Bowhunter brand, I've been fortunate enough that I work in a situation with responsibilities that allow for me to get out and really hunt during the fall, like I probably did prior to high school sports, and man, since then, I guess you could say I've probably taken advantage of it. I had hunted in South Dakota a little bit before I came here, but I've been back to South Dakota several times to hunt deer and turkey, whitetail and mule deer both.
I remember that trip.
Yeah, Justin, actually, you and I, on one of your freelance jobs, we went to South Dakota, and that was cold.
Yeah, that was brutal, man.
That was a brutal trip.
Mule deer, I think it was December, wasn't it? Or was it early January?
Yeah, second week of December in West Central South Dakota, and man, that was a brutal one.
Just outside of the Badlands National Park, like we drove through it to get to the hotel, and it was
and the breaks of the Cheyenne River, a great area. It's one of my favorite areas. It's a beautiful spot, man. It's one of those kind of secret spots in the world that unless you're going down I-90 to the west, you'll probably never really even get to experience the beauty of that place. You drive through 5 miles of the breaks in the bottom there. But
it's incredible.
Beautiful, beautiful place. But I guess other places that I've gone, actually that bear hunt that you and I were on in British Columbia, some of the ground that we were off and on there was Queensland, if I remember, is how they labeled it, which was some, in regards to Canadian citizens' public ground. And
I think it's Crown Land. I think they call it Crown Land.
Yes, sorry, Crown Land. Yep. Good pickup. So that adventure, Montana, just went to Montana this year, which I'd been dreaming about since I was a boy. And
did you do elk out there?
I actually did whitetail in Montana.
Oh, whitetail.
Yeah, whitetail for North American Whitetail TV. We went out and hunted. It was publicly accessible private ground. So their block management program that they have there in the state of Montana took advantage of that. Got to know the rancher, but it was publicly accessible ground, and awesome hunt. We didn't get any other pressure whatsoever for whitetails, but the last day we were there was the opening day of the rifle antelope season. And just to give you an idea of what that turned into, they had a card that you had to sign in, a sign-in box every day when we came out to the ranch, that we'd sign our name, license plate, put it in the box. And, they were like, I don't know if you guys remember any of those like raffle ticket books that, would float around for different high school functions or whatever it might be. They're probably 3/4 of an inch of the way thick. And they had 3 or 4 of those in there. And so the rancher had warned us. He said, hey, just FYI, next weekend, towards the end of your trip there, it's going to be antelope season. It'll turn into a little bit of a circus out here. And we kind of thought, how many guys are going to antelope hunt? We're at the foot of the crazy mountains, and there's some antelope around here, but surely there's not going to be that many people out here. And good golly, I mean, it was like, it reminded me of the Orange Army in Southern Iowa when the first blood season kicks in. It was unreal, man. Those like the first 3 books, and I'm pretty sure there were 4 total, but the first 3 books when I showed up that last morning to hunt deer were all filled. I mean, every one of those ticket books was filled. There was a name and a license plate number on every one of them, and a lot of the folks had actually come out the night before to register there at the box. So that was quite an experience as well, but an awesome one. But a lot of different places. I guess to answer your question, Justin, I've been fortunate enough over the last 3 seasons since working here that I've been able to cruise around and check out several public land places in different states.
So what's on your list for 2019? What applications do you have out west?
Well, actually, when you called me, I was sitting here looking at the Wyoming Game and Fish website. So I'm going to try to pull off Wyoming this year, a public land hunt in the Black Hills for whitetail. Yeah. I'm going to go back to Montana. I'll do that Wyoming hunt the first week of September, hopefully. I'm going to go back to Montana the first week of October. I just had so much fun out there, and it's beautiful, man, just so beautiful. Yeah. I'm going to do that again.
Yep. I did a hunt out there with Haynes Shelton, your coworker there.
Yeah.
Did a hunt with him in Wyoming a couple years ago, which is cool. You go in September, and it's crazy, man. You hunt these giant alfalfa fields, and it's like you see 800 deer a night. It's crazy. Like you don't know how to do it. Like this is not the way whitetail hunting is supposed to work.
Yeah, man. It's unreal. And I guess my whole motivation for going out there was my trip back from Montana last year. We drove through the Black Hills area there, coming back through like Devil's Tower, where we all see, Heartland Bow Hunter and the guys from North American Whitetail TV, and, go down the list, the Real Tree guys, Monster Buck guys, where they've all gone out and hunted at 7J and several of the ranches out there. And I was just driving through that area there on I-90, and I think I came through about 3 hours before dark, and we were due for fill up of gas, and we came right into Sundance there, and decided to pull off. And as I was pulling off, I just remember kind of, like you said, glancing over and seeing 4 or 5 alfalfa fields on the other side of the interstate. And then it all disappeared as I went on down the exit ramp. And we pulled in and got gas. And the freelance cameraman that was with me then, I said, man, I could have swore I saw some deer out in one of those alfalfa fields over there. I said, I've been driving for a little while. I just want to cruise over there and see if we saw deer. And so he said, all right, cool, whatever. And we hopped back in the truck after we filled up with gas and got some snacks and went under the overpass and over to the other side and look up in that alfalfa field. And it was loaded, man. There was, to your point, there was over 100 deer. And it was 3 hours before dark. And it's like October. And you're thinking, I know they're still on feeding patterns, but good golly. I mean, I-90 is right there. And right across the road is a big chunk of publicly accessible hunting ground. Like, it was actual public land right there that they were coming off of. And they weren't all does. They weren't all slickheads. There was several that would have, hit Pope and Young for sure, and so then I got to thinking, I know September has a pretty early, Wyoming has pretty early season, a pretty early opener. I might need to look into that over the winter here. And so the more I looked into it, man, I've decided, yes, that's a place I'm going. So
I'll tell you, I have to agree with you. That area, I've hunted. Well, I got to film for 10 days out there at 7J on the opener in September 1st, and it is if not my favorite hunt, it is like top 3 favorite whitetail hunts. And I mean, I was just filming, but I want to go back someday and do that in that area because that's a bucket list thing for me. Because just like what you said is, you'll see 100 deer in an alfalfa field, and you get in there in the stand in the morning and just let them file by you. It is back to bed. It is the most fun I've had. I mean, you'll see 70 deer come by you in the morning, and it's unbelievable. I just love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm envious of you, so I'll have to check back in with you, Aaron, and let you know if it goes as I plan for it to. But.
Yeah, for sure, because I want to be, my daughter's a year and a half right now, and I'm going to draw an Iowa tag this year. I should be able to. I think I got enough points to do it. But after this year, within the next 2 to 3 years, that's going to be the hunt that I want to go and spend some money on and go do that.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a good one. I'm looking forward to it. It's a cool place, for sure.
Yep.
So, Layden, I gotta bring this up, put you on the spot. At the Deer Classic, we talked about the fact that I have a Montana bear tag for this spring, and you said it's doable. You just gotta make it doable. So, you've been working on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to work on that. And I think the other part that I told you after saying just got to make it happen was, the make it happen part is getting permission from the wife.
Right. Yeah.
My wife. I shouldn't say the wife, but my wife.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know about that one, Justin. We're gonna have to pick that one back up. But
Okay.
No, it's as you said. I got the chance to work with North American Whitetail TV and actually got offered the producer's role back here in the fall, and which is awesome. I never ever would have guessed. My life growing up as a boy and watching the show and taking it in over the last 16 years that I ever would have had an opportunity like that. But very thankful for it. And
that's awesome.
And so it's come with some extra responsibility, and part of that extra responsibility is making sure that we're putting together our Q3, Q4 shows. And one of the things that we do in the spring is our Build Your Own Deer Factory, and it's one of our land management segments that we do on the show. And Dr. Deer, James Kroll is kind of the leader of that show, but we'll be filming it a couple of weeks here in early May. So hopefully that doesn't get in the way either. But if we don't make it happen this year, I'm going to tell you to take some really good notes, and hopefully you'll take me back out at another point in time.
Layden, you got to remember, Justin doesn't have kids like you and I, so he can kind of come and go whenever he wants.
That's right. Enjoy it while you can.
Exactly.
Kids are the best thing in the world, but it definitely it adds some limitations that you'll enjoy. Some limitations that you'll enjoy.
No, I know. I'm still. I don't know. I'm married as well, but I still feel like there's part of that single man living that I try to get away with.
I agree.
And I know I get away with it. Believe me, I know I get away with it.
Well, that's good. That's good. You got somebody that allows for you to. That's the other thing that's cool too.
Hey man, she quit her job and we sold our life to come to Iowa a year ago, and we're still here. So
Yeah, you got
like
a good
I said,
one.
Yeah, I know it, man. I can count on two hands the number of people whose marriage went the other way that are in this business, and I know it's very fortunate. All three of us are. So
Yeah.
Oh man,
I agree.
Sure.
Yep.
For sure.
Well, Layden, I got a question for you, and something I want to learn a little more about is your Project Public that you got going on, that you're working on. Can you kind of explain to everybody what that is and what it consists of?
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you asking about it. Really, I guess kind of the idea for Project Public was something that was kind of farmed up with another buddy of mine, Tony Peterson, which if you're a guy that kind of consumes public land content, whether it be on the web or in North American Whitetail Magazine or even Bowhunter Magazine, you've probably come across Tony Peterson at some point. And was fortunate enough to meet Tony when I came to work at OSG, or actually just prior to when I was working at Bowtech, and man, we hit it off right out of the gate. And actually, the way in which we hit it off was talking about hunting turkeys on public ground. Believe it or not, while we were at a media turkey hunt in Kansas on private ground. It's funny how things work. But when I first came to North American Whitetail about, I guess 18 months ago now, we were challenged to go out and come up with some new business ideas for the brands, and just, looking for ways to evolve North American Whitetail or at least extend the platform a little bit. And Tony and I, again, were just sitting talking about public land hunting one day, and one of the things that Gordon and Haynes have done really well at this magazine is they introduced the August DIY issue for North American Whitetail, and it's an issue that we do every year in August. It hits the newsstand and subscribers' mailboxes in July, and it's centered 100% around either public land or DIY setups for whitetail deer hunters. And it's just been really successful for us. And, with this recent increase in people looking for more information and wanting to hunt public ground more, it's just continued to take off. And one of the things that we hadn't done real well yet at North American Whitetail was grown our social following. We really had kind of focused everything around the magazine and around the TV show. And sure, we had a Facebook page, and we had just started to flirt with Instagram a little bit. And, as a staff, we'd talked a lot about, what things that we could do to help grow our social. And anyway, Tony and I were just kind of spitballing things around, and Tony said, man, what do you think about like a public land hunting project? And I said, man, I think it'd be great. We know for sure that our audience likes it. And I said, but how do we grow it? What do we do? We just don't want it to be one of those things where we go out and it's like, hey, look at us, we hunt public ground and we harvest deer, and it's not about the project, it's about us. And Tony said, no, we don't want that at all. And I said, but what do we both enjoy about public land hunting? And both of us said the adventure, and we talk all the time about how much opportunity there is out there, and, just kind of the misnomer that, public land stinks and you don't want to hunt it and there isn't any of it. And if there is some, everybody's on it. And so, we sat down, put our heads together and talked it over with, Gordon Whittington and said, what if we just bring to, our followers and subscribers, our readers, a project that spans not only our magazine, but, mainly our social feeds and a little bit on our web, that tells about public land hunting for whitetails and the opportunity that exists out there. It really just kind of shares what's out everybody's back door, or a state over, or maybe half a country over, but, really how easy it is for you to get there and the opportunity that's there once you're there. And so we did, and we came up with a project called Project Public, and Tony and I picked about 7 different states. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hunt any of them together, but we cruised around in the fall last year and just really took the approach of, if I were a guy that was working, an 8 to 6 job or an 8 to 5 job, and all I had was, a few vacation days or a 3-day weekend or maybe a holiday weekend to get out, put ourselves kind of in that shoe or in the shoes of those guys, and took out and tried to create a kind of a neat social campaign through photos and videos and talking about the access that was out there at everybody's fingertips in some of these different states. So we did, and it turned out really well, man. Our followers really enjoyed it, and just enjoyed getting to talk to our readers about it, and had a great time with it, man. Really great time.
That's really cool. Now, is it something you guys are going to keep doing this year as well, this upcoming season?
We are, yeah. We're talking about it right now. We wanted to do the initial project and see what the response was, and we were lucky enough that we got to partner with some good folks out there that just said, hey, we're not really looking for a standard sponsorship deal, and we weren't looking for that either. We were just looking for folks that could partner with us and help share the message, and that ended up being Sitka Onyx, Yeti, and the Scent Crusher guys, and partnered up with them, and they thought it went well from their side as well. They heard a lot about it and gave us some great feedback, and so as we sat down here at the end of the fall and began to talk about it this year, we're definitely going to look at 2.0 and or even looking at potentially maybe expanding the project a little bit. You guys both said that I work for Outdoor Sportsman Group, so we have sister brands like Bull Hunter or Gundog or Wildfowl, and public land's not only limited to the deer hunter or the elk hunter. It's there's a lot of opportunities for the guys out there wanting to hunt squirrels or rabbits or ducks or geese, and so that spans the breadth of some of our other offerings here at OSG, and we haven't got that far yet, but it may expand beyond whitetails, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
We'll definitely do whitetail though.
For sure. That's awesome.
Okay, so I always had this, I don't want to say assumption because I'm probably wrong, but did this North American Elk publication come about as a result of the Project Public thing? Like that, is that the printed integration of Project Public, or is it just a way to help spread the message, or is it totally not related?
No, I mean, not really. They're kind of two of their own projects.
Okay.
Project Public was really kind of geared towards the whitetail hunter and the public land hunter, or those wanting to, and North American Elk was kind of a different project. Again, our management, our executive teams kind of just challenged us to come up with some new business ideas coming into the next year, and sat down with some guys and we started hammering it out. Just really fortunate that I work with some cool people, and they're very creative folks, and we just are able to sit down and kind of put our minds together and really try to listen to what it is that people are looking for out there. And we have some great audiences and some great readers and followers, and they are starting to engage with us a little bit more. That's one of the nice things about social media is that, whether you've got followers or customers or clients or fans, like you get the opportunity to engage with them and really hear what it is that people are seeking out there in regards to content or information. And that project was actually kind of based out of our reader survey. We've got a reader survey that we do every 3 years that allows for us to kind of get a better idea of, the demographics of our readers and what it is that they're buying and what it is that they're looking for in regards to content. And through our reader survey, we found out that about 26% of our readers at North American Whitetail either hunted elk this year, hunted elk last year, or planned on hunting elk next year. And this is a pretty large number when you think about it. And we're just kind of spitballing some ideas around and began to look at the marketplace. And, there's Eastman's Hunting Journal, which is an awesome publication, awesome TV show, just an awesome family altogether, that does some stuff in regards to educating folks on where they can go and hunt in the West, not specifically to elk, but mule deer, elk, antelope, bear, do a great job of it. There's the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation publication Bugle that talks about the origination of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and what they're doing and gives you some tips and strategy. But there really wasn't a book out there or a brand out there that just kind of directed themselves at the Eastern marketplace and helped them get from the eastern half of the states out to, what was really their dream of or the pinnacle of big game hunting kind of, here in the lower 48, and that's elk, right. Or elk hunting.
So this is like when you say the Eastern demographic, I mean, basically you're saying the whitetail hunter. This is the whitetail hunter's approach to elk hunting.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. And I guess what kind of blew the idea up in our mind was we were sitting there, we'd just gotten challenged with this new project or the opportunity to dream up a new project. And I had spent the weekend talking to, my uncle, my cousin, which Justin, you got to meet my uncle when we were hunting in South Dakota. It's a trip we make together every year. And we were talking about the fact that we had been elk hunting last year. We went to Colorado for our first time. It was the first time any of us out of the group, my best friend, my uncle, cousin, and had gone elk hunting and did it on public ground in South Central Colorado and had to figure it all out ourselves. But it took us 8 years to get there. We started talking about that the year I graduated college, and it's such a process. Like it's hard, man. I mean, I know you guys have done it because you've been out west, and Justin, you just acquired a bear tag from Montana. If you pick up that Montana big game guide, that sucker is like 2 inches thick, and the elk section is a quarter of it. And just picking a zone's one thing, but then picking the weapon that you're going to use and picking the season, and are you going to hunt? Are you going to try to pull the general draw tag, or are you going to go in and try to apply for points for a few years and then build up enough points to draw that specific or limited unit? And man, it's just such a process. And so anyway, we were coming off planning hunt number 2 for last September. And even though we'd been there the year before, it was still just a process to make sure that, the regulations hadn't changed, and to make sure that that unit hadn't been burned up in the wildfires that they had. And if it had, where were we going to go next? And, were we going to be able to drive just north to an over-the-counter zone, or were we going to have to drive 2 or 3 units north to get to another over-the-counter zone and have good hunting? And so I was just kind of telling my buddy about that, or the guy I worked with, and I said, let me throw this one at you. I know looking at our reader survey, we got 25%, and of our guys that want to elk hunt. And man, those were all Eastern folks, and it was a process. Maybe they'd be willing to hear us out and, look for a good resource to help them go west and to go through that process I just went through. And so sure enough, we batted around and came up with North American Elk. And it's another just real neat project that was fortunate enough to be a part of.
Yeah. I think it's such a fresh take on the way that people are going to look at Western big game hunting. Cause like you said, that the elk is the pinnacle big game animal for anyone in the lower 48. And guys like myself and Aaron, and even you that just grew up hunting deer and turkeys, it's just like, it's the thing at the end of the rainbow, it's the pipe dream. It's that someday hunt, that you always tell yourself your whole life you're going to do. And it's like, going back to the public land aspect of this, it is far more attainable than 99% of people think it is. And it's just it's such a cool thing to pick up. And as a whitetail hunter, read the articles, look at the products, and just see how much of the stuff crosses over. Sure, there's difference in the way you have to hunt them. I mean, it's a different animal, but as far as gear goes and like, your scent, and just the tactic behind it, there's so much stuff that crosses over. And I think that's probably one of the most overwhelming things for people. And, I say this because I'm preparing to go on my first elk hunt this year. I've never even filmed an elk hunt, so I don't know what I'm getting into, but I'm going to go give it a shot. But, back to what I was saying, it's like, it's that confusion of what works, what doesn't. Like, do I need a new this? Do I need a new bow, a new bag, a new pack? What's the best rifle caliber? Like, newsflash, 30-06, same as your whitetail setup on your bow. Like, the only thing I would upgrade is a backpack.
Yeah,
just to anticipate getting something. And boots.
Make sure you have good boots.
But it's just I got it sitting right here in front of me. I've been looking at it since you gave me the first copy out in Salt Lake City. But I'll tell you what, man, it's so cool to see how much of the stuff is really the same. And it's, if nothing else, it just gives you the confidence to say, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. I'll say that, one of the real neat things about how we came up, or kind of the delivery of this magazine, speaking to like, your comment about the ease of transition, if you kind of get guided through that, and kind of getting there. I was sitting with Skip Knowles, our editor, and we were just talking through his list of contributors and who it was going to be. And, Skip's if you guys, at some point, you've probably watched Skip on on the Outdoor Channel growing up, you know, whether it was the Beretta TV show or you've read his stuff in Predator Nation or Wildfowl or maybe Peterson's Hunting. But, you know, Skip has no shortage of great writers he could go to or great contributors he could go to. And we were just kind of talking through it. And it came up that we wanted to make sure that whoever it was that participated in this magazine, we wanted them to be folks that our Eastern audience was already familiar with, right? Because it's real easy for us to get intimidated if we look out west and, you know, we see an awesome elk hunter like Corey Jacobson of Elk 101 that is writing an article and you're like, oh yeah, but he's just another guy from Idaho. And, you know, he grew up with that, you know. It'd be like me trying to tell some guy from Oregon how to hunt whitetails. You know, it's going to be a little intimidating because he is who he is. And so we focused real hard to try and find some folks that were either from the East and had, you know, really built their foundation on whitetail hunting or cut their teeth on whitetail hunting and had become elk hunters. Or they were guys that, you know, maybe they were elk hunters or lived in the West, but they spent a lot of time out with guys that had come out of the East to hunt elk and could speak, you know, from an educated or experienced standpoint about what they'd seen people traverse, you know, coming into that realm of elk hunting. And so, I mean, you'll see, you know, people, I like one of the coolest ones is, you know, Will Primos right out of the gate. We've got this great big article with Will Primos and the Primos team and just getting to hear, you know, the grandfather of you know, or one of our grandfathers or of hunting, you know, at least for our generation, talk about, you know, his transition and how he first fell in love. And you kind of, I mean, it turned out much better than I think Skip or I could have ever imagined. And just reading that first article with Will Primos and having him talk about, you know, he experienced the same feelings that we all experienced as whitetail hunters from, you know, New York or Michigan or Missouri in my case. And, you know, Fred Eichler from a guide standpoint or Mark Kaiser, I mean, Josh Dalkey, a guy that's our age, you know, that had made the trip for the first few times in the recent years himself. And just, it turned out, you know, really cool. And I know I probably speak for Skip when I say this, but I know we parallel our thoughts on this. It just felt so lucky to even be a part of it, man.
It's funny you mentioned Skip, because when you guys were pushing this on social media, when that first issue came out, you know, I reached out to Skip and, you know, expressed my appreciation for what it was, having gotten it from you in Salt Lake. But, you know, I went on to tell him, like, hey, this is what I do, so I work for now, and I'm looking to go on my first elk hunt this year, and it's just, you know, it's refreshing, like I just said a minute ago, and I was just excited about it, you know, and something you believe in, and it makes you feel like you can do it. And,
yeah.
You know, we actually had a very brief conversation on social media about it privately, and, you know, I'm gonna pitch an article to you guys for it after my hunt out there, and I mean, I'm gonna be filming the whole thing, so there'll be some supporting photos to throw in there. And I mean, if you guys like it, great. If not, then edit the crap out of it until you like it.
Well, I haven't seen you do anything that's halfway so far. You're you know, not to pump you up or anything, but you're an all right guy behind the video camera.
Well, thanks,
some pretty killer still photos too, by the way. But yeah, we look forward to that, man. Make sure you get it back to us.
It'd be fun. Yeah, for sure. I don't know, just something to keep on my mind when I'm out there. You know, it's the first time, so I'll have a different interpretation of it than I ever will again, I think. So I'm going to go into it open-minded, you know, and just saying whatever happens, and no matter what, it's a learning experience. So
just soak it up, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so new. There's so many things that are going to stick and so many things that are going to get tossed out the window. So it's, like I said, I don't know what to expect, but I know physically I'll be ready, and that's about all you can ask for.
That's right. Be physically ready and be ready to go. It'll be a hoot, man, and it'll be tough at times. And I've gone on 2 hunts now, and I'm a long ways from being successful at either one of them. But there will be some very tough times, but there's nothing more rewarding than that first morning that you'll wake up and the sun's shining, you know, and you're at 11,000 feet or, you know, 9,000 feet, whatever it is, and you look out and see a big drainage and, you know, hear that elk bugle way off down in there. I mean, dude, it'll stick in your mind. I can remember, and I will remember for the rest of my life. It's only been 2 years at this point, but that first elk that I watched walk out into a park, and bugle with his 3 cows and a calf right there. And I mean, I'd been waiting for that since I was a boy when, Grandpa would come back from Colorado and his elk hunts, and I'd been waiting for that moment, and it will stick there for the rest of my life.
Oh man,
it's
got me excited just talking about it again. Like I'm getting into it right now more than I was 5 minutes ago. I can't wait. And then April 21st will come and I won't get drawn. I'll just...
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the good thing about it is there's a couple states that still offer over-the-counter opportunities. Colorado being one of them, and Idaho. Our mutual friend Danny Ferris might not like us talking about the fact that Colorado's an over-the-counter state, but
yeah, that's my plan. That's my plan B. If I don't get one, and it's Colorado, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. My plan is to just keep applying for these general season ones and then default to over-the-counter stuff until I pull New Mexico. Just keep applying for New Mexico, and then hopefully by the time I actually draw that, I'll know what the heck I'm doing, and it'll be worth it.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
Well, Layden, I know it's taken us a while to get on the same schedule. Man, I really appreciate you carving out the time. Like you said, 3 boys at home and your wife, and again, it's 8:30 our time here, so I know what it is to have to walk away from that at this hour of the day, but we really appreciate it, man.
Oh, man, I thank you. I thank you both for having me. And I've found in doing this over the last couple of years that, when you get like minds around and we can kind of share our passion of hunting, it's real easy to turn a 10-minute conversation into a couple-hour conversation. So
yeah,
I feel like we just barely touched the cusp of what we could talk about. So more conversations to come. But I do really appreciate you guys having me on, and thank you for asking about our projects at North American Whitetail or with North American Elk, and appreciate both of you following along. I've heard both of you say in the conversation that you're familiar with those brands, so I know that means a lot to folks like Gordon Whittington and Hanes and Skip. So
there's something special, a special place for all you guys with me, because that's where all my freelance work was, and you guys are the ones I came up with. Aaron taught me how to use the camera and helped me get going, and you guys at North American Whitetail specifically, Gordon, Hanes, Doc, Stan, and even back to Geo, you guys are the ones that rooted me in this business, I guess, if you want to say it. That kind of gave me the momentum. So I said, you guys have a special place in my heart, and I always know what's going on with your projects, man. It's, I don't know, just very appreciative of what all you guys do. And
you're a big part of that. Yeah, like I said, that means a lot to all those guys, but you're a big part of that. And you put your fingerprint on a lot of North American Whitetail over the last 3 years, and Bowhunter as well. And, Aaron, I apologize, but we don't share as many parallels as Justin and I do. I don't know very many people that can say that they spent 10 days in a cabin by a lake with the one and only Kurt Wells without electricity and only a lantern. Justin and I had that moment together.
Yeah, man, I didn't realize it, and I'm really mad at myself that I missed Kurt. He was up here in Iowa for the Bowhunters banquet. What did they call it? It was last week.
The Iowa State Bowhunters
yes,
banquet?
that's the one. Yes, and I had no idea that was going on. I don't know how I missed it, but
I didn't realize it until I saw Kurt's Facebook post that he was headed there.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm right there with you. So.
So where can people find North American Elk? Can you subscribe to it, or is it newsstand purchase only? What's the status of that right now?
So a couple different ways. It is a newsstand only book, which means it'll hit newsstands in most of the places that you're going to see North American Whitetail magazine, in the Midwest and the eastern half of the country. It did actually manage to leak its way into some Western distribution markets as well. I know that Skip actually saw it in a couple places in Colorado.
Okay.
But you also can go to the iTunes store or the Apple App Store, and you can download the North American Elk app, and then actually you can pick up a digital copy of the book through the North American app, and you can do that also on Google Play. So you have the Apple Store or Google Play. You can do that either way. And then worst case scenario, you can go to our OutdoorSG.com website, and there is actually a brands page, and you can kind of filter your way through there, and you can have a physical copy mailed to your house if you weren't able to pick it up on newsstand somewhere. So
Okay, and how many are there a year?
right now 102,000. So we did 2 different distribution dates. We did our first one this year in February. Kicked it out right out of the gate, and we were really hoping to kind of get it out in the marketplace just prior to tag draws, so that our write-ups on state breakdowns could be used and be useful. And then we'll have a second release date in late July that'll actually go out just really to feed off of elk fever. So we've got I'm partial, I'm biased, of course, 100%, but we've got a breathtaking cover on the front of it that, when it's sitting on the newsstand, I hope it does its job and it grabs you. But it was taken by a guy by the name of Jason Loftus, Untamed Images, if you're following around on Instagram. But the guy took an awesome photo and was lucky or nice enough to let us use it. So I hope it sticks out to you. If you see it on the new shelves there in August, it should. But that'd be the other time that you could find it there in August. We'll have about 52,000 copies going out again then.
Okay, and how many issues over a year?
Yeah, just one right now.
Just one. I'm sorry. Okay.
With this initial year, but man, we're already planning volume 2 for 2020.
Gotcha.
With any luck, there's the potential that we might grow to 2 issues next year.
Okay.
But we'll see how that goes. But worst case scenario, you're going to have another issue in 2020, and then we'll look to grow it in 2021 to a 2-issue delivery. So
awesome.
Very cool, man. And Layden, on my end, I want to thank you for coming on and doing this, like Justin said, and I appreciate it a lot too. And I've been on Justin to get you on here too, and just trying to get schedules lined up. And I'm super happy you were able to come on. And like you said, hopefully we can do this again and maybe dive deeper into some other public land things. And like I said, I want to pick your brain more about the Wyoming public whitetail. So. I'll be interested in more of that too. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I haven't booked my housing yet out there, so open invitation to either one of you guys. Even if you want to go out and join me, it'd be a fun trip to do together. And to your point of thanking me, man, I just appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on here. And I'll throw this in there, like you and I talked about earlier, man. If somebody's gonna go out and public land hunt, just go out and enjoy it, man. There is just a lot of opportunity and adventure out there for anybody that wants to go out and experience that trip. It's really neat if you can embrace it for what it is.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, man. And again, thanks for doing this.
Yep, thank you guys.